Hey guys, welcome to my March reading wrap-up. You're going to notice, once again, I filmed clips throughout the month as I finished a few books. This was a very weird reading month for me. I've mentioned it in videos throughout the month. There's just been a lot going on in life, and I figured out like a few different reasons why my reading has just kind of, it's felt a little up and down, but also felt kind of non-existent. One, we were getting our house ready to list. We listed our house. We had to be out all the time for showings and spent lots of time cleaning. Mentally, I just wasn't into reading. Like, there are a lot of times in life when reading can be an escape, but a lot of the time during this month, anytime I would sit down to read, I just had other thoughts in my head, or I didn't even want to sit down to read, while also wanting to sit down and read. I feel like most people can probably relate to different seasons in life. We have different interactions with reading, and I don't like it. Like, I can understand why it happened, but I hope this doesn't continue. That being said, I did read some really great books in March. I read some duds, I DNF'd a few, but I got some boxes checked. Slowly working on cleaning out my shelves a little bit so I have a little less to move. And I'm just hoping that my April with the TBR that I've picked goes better. And now we will get into all the thoughts on the books that I read in April. No, definitely March. Welcome to my first weekly wrap-up. Today's already the 11th, so this is almost week 2, and I have a few books to update you on, but it's deceiving because the first one I read in February and forgot about. The second one I DNF'd, and I have 3 books that I finished thus far. So, Defy the Night, you guys, in my February wrap-up, I was like, I feel like I forgot a book. I thought I was forgetting a book. I forgot an entire book. So I read Defy the Night last month. This one, we follow 2 main characters. One named Tessa, and one, what was his name? He's the prince of this kingdom. Tessa and Korik. So this kingdom has kind of been falling apart. Years ago, Korik and his brother, whatever, the current king, their parents were assassinated. And since they were assassinated, Korik and his brother have become like ruthless. They're trying to show how strong they are so that they don't get assassinated. And this book is very political in many ways because there's political reasons as to why they don't want things to fall apart, and like they are worried about their people, but they also have no troubles like killing them if they steal or stuff like that. And Tessa is one of the women of the kingdom, one of the girls. Okay, so there is a sickness that is going through the land. It is called, I don't remember, but it's made from the moonflower petal, and the moonflower petal is very expensive. So Tessa steals moonflowers along with this kind of like accomplice of hers named Wes. They steal moonflower petals, make this remedy, and distribute it to people for free. And that's kind of the basis of the story. And then things kind of go wrong. So this is a YA fantasy story, and I so enjoyed it. I also read A Curse So Dark and Lonely, that series, or maybe just a couple books in the series, I can't remember, by her, and I enjoyed this so very much. I don't have book 2 or 3, but I can tell you that I definitely plan on getting them and continuing the series. I was amazed at how political it was. We spent a lot of time with Korik and his kind of like explanations as to why they can't just make the moonflower petal free for everyone, and the problems with some of the, I can't remember what they are, like the rich, different ambassadors and stuff. They control a lot of the wealth in the kingdom, and they're trying to make sure that the moonflower petals aren't completely wiped out. Like, they don't want the people that have power over them to make sure that nobody can get them, if that makes any sense. So it's like, when you're with Korik, you're like, oh, this guy's so evil. But then you're also like, oh, I can see why he is. And then when you're with Tessa, you're like, oh, I just want everybody to have like free medicine. And yeah, it's interesting. I'm curious to see where this series continues to go. Then I was not so sure about this as I was reading it, A Bridge Across the Ocean. I kind of liked it, and then I ended up quitting it. So in this one, there is a ghostly character and element, which I've never read in Susan Meisner's books before, but I was totally interested in because I've been reading so much like fantasy lately, I think. So we're kind of all over the place. So current day, we're with a girl named Brett. She has always been able to see ghosts, and she ends up going to a famously haunted Queen Mary at the request of an old friend. And then she ends up kind of coming across some kind of tragedy that she wants to solve. And I'm like halfway through the book, I think I was, and that's just where we got to. And that's the description of her thing. And then we're like World War II with a couple different people. Annalise, she's a German ballerina who married a Nazi who was not very kind to her. And Simone, she is the daughter of a French resistance man, and she ends up killing someone, so she's kind of on the run. And like there's all these different things going on, and it just kind of went to a few places I didn't care for, and there was too many things going on, I think. I liked some of the storylines, or I liked each of them individually, but not all together, so I ended up quitting it about halfway through. So after all that, I finally finished a book in March. Song for a Whale. I always want to say like a song for a whale or the song for a whale. You guys, I have heard from people for years that this book is good, and I don't know why. I just never picked it up. But I ended up getting it on audio, so this is an audiobook I listened to, and it was so good. The only thing is, the narrator, you know, like when people say a word a certain way, then you start like overanalyzing it. She always called it electronics, not like electronics, but like electronics. So that got a little annoying, but other than that, the audiobook was good. So in this one we follow, why am I so bad at names? A girl who is deaf, and her name is Iris, yes. And her grandparents are also deaf, but her family is all hearing, her parents and her brother. And at school one day, she learns about a whale named Blue 55. And Blue 55 is a hybrid whale. His parents were two different types of whales, I can't remember. So he sings at a different frequency than all the other whales. And this is like loosely based off of a true story. And he always ends up being alone because he's singing a different song than everyone else. And Iris is really into electronics. Yeah, okay, I won't say it like that anymore. She does a lot of work with radios, fixing radios, which is interesting for someone that's deaf. And she wants to help Blue 55 be able to hear his song or something. I don't know how to word it exactly. Know that he's not alone in the ocean kind of idea. And there was a part in this book where I thought it was going to take kind of that like middle grade trope where Iris hops on a bus and tries to run away, and it didn't quite, and I really appreciated that. There is a lot of character growth in here. This made me want to learn ASL. Like, I've always been interested in sign language. I don't know if I still like will actually do anything about it, but like it made me think about it again. It's been a while since I thought about it. Yeah, and I really enjoyed it. 5 stars. So I'm gonna be another one of those people that just keeps recommending this book. This, for middle grade March, this is either gonna be my one with an animal on the cover or a book you missed out on, because I feel like years ago people were talking about it. So depending what else I pick up, it's gonna be one of those. And then I breezed through the Book of Lost Names. This was my Patreon buddy read with my patron of the month, and I went to go get blood work one day and was told that it was like a 45-minute wait, and it ended up being over 2 hours, and I had already started the book at that point, and then I just finished it. So this is about Eva. It starts out when she's like quite old, 80s, 90s, and she sees an ad in a newspaper. She's a librarian in Florida. She sees an ad in a newspaper that like there's a book that someone found from World War II that the Germans stole from somewhere, and this person's trying to reunite these books with their owners, and Eva decides to hop on a plane and go get this book because it's hers. And then throughout the book we keep flashing back to World War II and getting the story of the Book of Lost Names. And Eva is in her late teens, I think, when World War II, or I guess like the Germans kind of like really intensely go into France, into Paris, and round up a bunch of Jews and send them to concentration camps. And Eva and her mother escape and flee to a different area in France, and Eva becomes a forger, and she helps forge documents so that children can flee France through Switzerland. That's the premise of the book. It was quite well done. A few things I didn't like. I think I gave it 5 stars on Goodreads. It's more like 4.5. I did overall enjoy it. So yeah, this is my first book by Kristen Harmel, and I think I've heard good things about her other ones. I don't remember what they are right now, so it's made me interested in trying another one. Then last night, or yesterday, I just breezed through Double Identity by Margaret Peterson Haddix. She was writing these books when I was like the bulk of her books she wrote when I was late high school, like already graduated, and I feel like if she'd been writing these books 5 to 10 years earlier, like this is what my middle grade self would have loved. So in this book, Bethany, her parents are like very overprotective, and we start out, they are taking a spontaneous road trip and they just drop her off at this lady's house, and her parents have never let her go for a sleepover, pretty much never let her out of their sight. They drop her off at this lady's house, and Bethany hears them say she doesn't know about Elizabeth, and then she's just left at this house. She can't get a hold of her parents. Their cell phones are all disconnected, and there's like these weird things kind of going on in the town. People keep looking at her weird, or like there's these mentions of Elizabeth, and I don't know, it was just a fun read. I won't say much more than that. It's just over 200 pages long. A quick read, enjoyable. I have another Margaret Peterson Haddix that I'm hoping to get to before the end of the month. I guess for middle grade March, I'm not sure if this would fit any of the prompts. I'm just mostly just trying to read as many middle grade books as I want / am interested in, but we'll see if I can make it work. I don't think I can. Welcome to my second reading update. I have 4 books to update you on. Just to give an overview, I am still not reading very much. Just I think being busy with life stuff, my brain is otherwise occupied. I've been doing a lot of homeschool planning, so I can't be reading when I'm doing that, and I just haven't been in the mood for audiobooks. And that being said, I have started a lot of books and I plan on continuing them, finishing them. So at some point there's gonna be a lot of books updated, but it's been a good chunk of time since my last update, and like I only have 4 books and one of them is a DNF. So we'll talk about Spinning Silver first, because this is the book I decided to DNF. I started it back in February, read the first 3 chapters, was never enticed to pick it up again. So we have 2 main characters. We have Miriam. She's pretty young when we start. I would say probably about 12. Her father and her grandfather, like her mother's dad, are both money lenders. Her grandfather did really well. Her father, he feels bad and he never collects the money people owe him. Therefore, they're always starving, and the people in their village are doing great because they never have to pay back the money they borrow. And so Miriam decides to take matters into her own hands, and she goes door to door and starts collecting the debts that are owed. And she's just very unemotional, and I have a really hard time relating to her. Then she hires, because she's gone all day collecting the money, she hires like a local young woman named Wanda. Yeah. Wanda's like pretty big, and so she can do like the wood chopping and all this stuff. And Wanda has some like issues at home. She lives with her father and her 2 brothers, I think. And Wanda also like just doesn't talk, seems very, like she's had a traumatic childhood it seems, but she's just very emotionless as well. And I just didn't care about these girls. So I heard, it took me a while to like be like, okay, I'm gonna quit it, because I wanted to hear from other people, and most people said it does get a bit better, but they still kind of only gave it about 3 stars. And just with how boring I found those first 3 chapters, unfortunately, I just decided, you know what, I need to quit it, get it off my shelves. I don't want to move a book that I'm not, like, every time I looked at it I was just like, I don't want to pick it up. So I'm gonna put it in a little free library or sell it or something before we move, so I don't have to carry this hefty book along with me and all my other books. This morning I like finished, I don't know, I'm considering this book read, Poems by C.S. Lewis. I didn't read all the poems, to be honest, but I'm still marking it as read. I'm going to keep the book because it is C.S. Lewis, and my thing with most of his poems are they're very classical. There is a lot of Greek mythology, Greek gods, of which I've never been interested, and classical writing is just a little too smart for me at this point. I feel like this might be a book that I'm interested in a few years, hence why I want to keep it. There was one poem that I want to read with my kids. It's called The Narnian Suite, and there's like a section that is dwarves singing and then a section that's giants singing, and I thought that'd be kind of fun if we could do the voices for the dwarves and the giants. And there's a lot of like imagery to do with like noise, like thump, bump, stamp, romp, like that kind of thing. So I think that'd be fun. So marking this as read because I want to just be done with it for now, but might come back to it at some point. I actually am keeping the bookmark in. I really only got that far. But it's just not, if I were to pursue finishing this right now, I wouldn't get anything out of it. So my theory is put it off for now. I am doing a lot of what I've been doing with our homeschool planning is also like planning my own education. I have my whole DIY literature degree video on here. Almost dropped another book. But that just is like one small part of what I want to be learning. And so I'm focusing a lot on like, okay, how can I gain knowledge, learn about history, be smarter? So maybe after I've done some of that, I can come back to this. I have only finished 2 middle grade books, I think. Oh, 3 middle grade books so far this month. I think last middle grade March, by the 15th of the month, I had read like 16 books, most of which were middle grade, so very short. Yeah, the reading is just not happening. But I wanted to read Seer of Shadows. This cover has intrigued me because it has to do with photography in the 1872. And I used to have a photography business, shot lots of weddings, and was interested. I've never actually done like darkroom photo developing and stuff, but it's interesting to me. And so I thought I would give this book a try. We follow Horace. He is 14 years old and he's apprenticing to a society photographer in New York City. And this wealthy lady comes and says her daughter died a couple weeks ago. She really is mourning her daughter. She feels like her daughter's spirit is kind of still around her. She would like a portrait of herself taken because, I don't remember the reasoning. I think she wanted to hang it somewhere so that her daughter could see it. But this lady's servant actually tells Horace, like, 1, that wasn't her daughter, 2, this girl was mistreated, and they kind of find out that maybe the ghost of this girl is kind of haunting this lady. At first when I read the book, there was some good themes. So Horace is the man he's apprenticing to. Actually, he doesn't realize that the backstory of what's actually going on. He only knows what the woman has told him. And he has this idea that he's going to take this photograph of this woman, and then he's going to make a double exposure photo where there's like kind of in the background you can kind of see the daughter, or who he thinks is the daughter. And then this woman's just gonna love it, and she's gonna tell all her friends, and this is gonna be his new business idea. It's pretty much scamming people and telling them like the spirits of their dead relatives can be photographed with them. So Horace is having this like moral dilemma of like, do I continue working for this guy? What do I say? Like, I enjoyed that, and I thought that maybe this would make a good book for me to get kids to read kind of around that age of 10. We can have good conversations. But because she just actually ends up being an angry ghost, I was like, okay, I don't know. It wasn't my favorite. I think I gave it like 3 stars. It wasn't terrible, but also I didn't enjoy it really. The best book that I read lately is The Orb and the Airship. Sometimes I can't read. This, I was really excited about it. I heard it from Christina Bear, who wrote Wormwood Abbey. She mentioned this in one of her newsletters. I don't know if she had read it or if it was just on her radar, but she mentioned steampunk fantasy, and I love steampunk stuff. I mean, I've read some not so great ones, but I've really loved some of them. And so we follow two main characters. So I'm using this for my two perspective prompt for the Read Your Bookshelf challenge. There is one chapter in here that we all of a sudden follow one other person, but I'm pretending that didn't exist so that I can fit it into the challenge because the rest of the book is just two characters. So we follow Graydon. Him and his best friend have been accepted into this prestigious military academy. So the first half of the book in their chapters, or in Graydon's chapters, are them traveling towards this military academy. And then we also follow Captain Merrick, so he gets the other chapters, and he is like an airship pirate. He goes aboard airships, steals things, etc. So I did find this book had a bit of a slow start, especially with Graydon's chapters. Him and his friend Wynne are traveling with this older wizard, and the wizard has obviously been out of touch for a few hundred years, even though he was living in a tower by their house or their village, although no one knew he was up there. It's a series, and so I think things are going to be explained. I'm a little confused by that thus far, but this man has been out of touch for a few hundred years, and so they're telling him a lot of what has happened. And fantasy can take me a little while to get into. I felt like this was just a little bit more like telling me what was happening instead of me just kind of like coming along for the ride. But once we got past that and we got a bit of the history, I really got into the book. So I think it's fairly obvious that Graydon and Wynne and their traveling companion, whose name? Dalmar, their airship ends up getting attacked by Merrick's crew, I guess is the right word. And after that, like, things got really interesting, and there were some political things going on, and I was like, is this what's happening, or is this what's happening? And because this is a series, book 1 and 2 are out. Book 3 is, I think she's just doing the cover reveal here right away. So it should be coming out later this year. I'm not sure where things are going to go, but now that I got into the story, I'm curious to continue it and see where we're going from here. So that's all for this wrap up. Hopefully I can finish some of the books that I'm in the middle of and have a decent amount to share next time. It feels like definitely a slower reading month than I've had in a very long time. I have 2 books to update you on. I have a feeling my battery might die partway through, but I'll see if I can do it. The first one is a DNF. That is The Lost Short Stories by Daphne du Maurier. It's du Maurier. I had expectations going in that were not met. I read 3 of the stories, I think. I read one of them from the library a long time ago when I got this book out, and I don't remember what I would have rated that book. It was okay, or that short story. Then I read the second short story and I gave it 2 stars, which, I mean, sometimes that happens, so okay. Then I tried the third short story, and I was waffling between a 2 or 1 star for it. This third short story is all about a vicar who is just looking to kind of like, I mean, everyone loves him because he doesn't talk about politics and he talks about current things, events and things of interest to them. He has a lot of friends, all the women like him. He obviously just wants to move up in the ladder socially. Like, he's all about looking good for the people who are rich, and that's kind of his goal. And I didn't really understand the point of the short story. There was like a short story kind of within this short story that if it had just been that, I feel like that would have been more interesting. There's this incident with this boy, this young man, and this young woman, where the woman ends up pregnant, and he gives some advice, which is not great. Like, that part, if that had been kind of like a short story on its own, I think that would have had some kind of lesson to it. and been worth it, but the actual short story was kind of terrible. So I haven't decided if I should get rid of this. I kind of wanted you guys to weigh in. I have little sticky notes where I am rating each short story separately. I saw Kayla from Books and Lala do this a long time ago, and I thought that was brilliant. I like that idea because it's hard to just like rate a short story collection overall when short stories are very different. But like, if you guys have read this, is it worth continuing? I didn't feel like there was any gothic elements or any of the Daphne du Maurier-ness that I enjoy from like Rebecca or My Cousin Rachel. But these are, I don't know if these were written before those books or not. I can't remember when those were written. I feel like this goes all the way till 1980 as a published date, but I don't know when she actually wrote them. Anyway, is this worth continuing, or should I just get rid of this book? Please let me know if you guys have read it and have opinions. The book that I did just finish is The Man in the Brown Suit. I just finished filming my like thoughts and all my suspicions and stuff. I'm doing this with my Windy Poplars and House of Dreams tier over on Patreon. We're reading an Agatha Christie each month this year, and I'm making an exclusive video where I give predictions. And I will say I didn't really have a lot of predictions for this book, and I didn't really see it coming, and I'm glad. So in this one we follow this woman named Anne. She is out for adventure, and her father has just passed away, and he's left her a teeny little bit of money, and she witnesses not a murder, like an accident. It's an accident. This guy is surprised and he falls off a train platform and dies, and then something suspicious happens there, and she noticed, and so she decides she's like following the trail with her last bit of money that she has, and she's taking a ship to South Africa. And this book was published in 1924, so it's 100 years old now. One of her first books published, I can't remember now if her first ones were in 22 or 23, but like this is the beginning of Agatha Christie's career. And her writing in this was so funny. There are a few lines that I want to read to you guys that are like, have nothing to do with the story, but are just hilarious. And I don't feel like we get a lot of this from Agatha Christie in her other books. So Anne, our main character, goes on a ship. She says, it is most undignified for a heroine to be seasick. In books, the more it tosses and rolls, the better she likes it. When everybody else is ill, she alone staggers along the deck, braving the elements and positively rejoicing in the storm. I regret to say that at the first roll the ship gave, I turned pale and hastened below. I feel like I can relate to that, and that just, it cracked me up because yes, this is what you would expect from an adventurer, to enjoy it. I disliked this man. He had false teeth that clicked when he ate. Many men have been hated for less. There's just like random funny lines. So we alternate between Anne telling her story and these diary excerpts from this man named Sir Eustace Pedlar, who is on the ship to South Africa, and she kind of like hangs out with him and his like posse. He's got a couple secretaries and other people that have attached themselves to him. Oh, it's really interesting to think about the time that this was written. Like now, if someone's going on a trip, you know, you maybe go with some friends or family, but like, I don't know, it's just the travel was so different back then, even just the way they hung around people. I find it intriguing. So Anne ends up witnessing that like accident, and then there's also a murder that's kind of tied to it, and she's trying to solve this, and also just like really curious. She just wants an adventure, and she's got nothing tying her down, so she's just like, I'm gonna go. And this is her trying to find the man in the brown suit who she saw at the scene of the accident, and I had a lot of fun with it. I do wish that Agatha Christie would have used Anne for future books. She would have made a great little detective adventuring spirit. Like, she would have been so fun to go on different little adventures with, but I'm assuming how the book ends, we never see or hear from Anne again, and that makes me a little bit sad because she would have been such a great character. So yeah, I have more thoughts and I had guesses and things going on that I talked about over on Patreon, but overall I really enjoyed The Man in the Brown Suit. This is going to go down as another one of my favorite Agatha Christie. We're getting close to the end of the month. I'm going to see if I can finish at least one more book before the end. Okay, and for the final few books that I read in the end here of March, thankfully I feel like things have wrapped up okay. An ebook that I want to talk about first before I forget. This is one that I mentioned in my anticipated releases. I found out when I was making the video that it was only 48 pages long, and so I figured I may as well just go ahead and request this from NetGalley and read it. It's The Not So Secret Secret to Reaching the Next Generation by Kevin DeYoung. And as we are getting ready to plant a church, and I'm thinking a lot about teens in our new church because we are moving with a couple of teenagers and stuff, this has been something that's been on my mind, and I really enjoyed this little booklet. My only complaint is I would have liked it to have been longer, but he packs a lot in the little booklet. So there are 5 main things he suggests doing, or ways to reach the next generation. Thankfully, none of them are learn the current lingo because I can't keep up with that kind of stuff. His 5 points are: grab them with passion, win them with love, hold them with holiness, challenge them with the truth, and amaze them with God. And then he goes and he expands on all of these, and a big thing that really hit me, it's like a no-brainer, but yet it was really good to read it and it really struck a chord with me. It says, if ever there was a secret to effective ministry, these verses give it to us. I guess the verses were previous to my highlight. Grow in God and you'll make a difference in people's lives. If nothing of spiritual significance is happening in your church, your Bible study, your small group, or your family, it may be because nothing spiritually significant is happening in your life. And it's just that reminder to stay immersed in the Word, learn about God, have a relationship with Him, and things will come out of that. But I really liked that reminder. So I gave it 5 stars. It was super short. Wish it would have been longer, but it did well for what it was. Another book I finished is The Gilded Ones. I pretty much read this over the course of most of the month. So I listened to the first half on audio, and then it was lagging for me. So I finished the last half of the book physically. In this one, the little tagline here is outcast by blood, warriors by choice. This is in a world where at a certain age, some girls bleed gold and they are considered demons and outcasts, and they usually get the death mandate once this happens, meaning they're supposed to be killed, but many of them can't be killed, or there's only like one particular way they can be killed. You can kill them over and over certain ways and that doesn't kill them. They just, their bodies like re-knit themselves and they come back. And our main character, Deka, is one of the Gilded Ones. Or the Gilded Ones were like a long time ago. She's one of the people that bleeds gold. But then there's also something else going on with her. So once she finds out that she bleeds gold, she gets tortured by her village, pretty much actually bled for her blood. Like, they hate her, but they're also using her for her blood because it's gold. And then she ends up getting taken by this woman who is collecting these outcasts and bringing them somewhere. And the book was like, I don't know, at first it's like, okay, like this is kind of, it's a little out there. And I feel like this is an unpopular opinion because I went on Goodreads and a lot of people really liked it that I follow. But I thought it was a little weird, but I kept reading. And then it just got weirder. And by the end, I really wasn't into it. So I think I gave it 3 stars. I really thought about giving it 2. I wish there was half stars. I probably would have given it 2.5. And then I've heard that the series, like, I can't remember, I think it's at least a trilogy. I hear that it goes downhill. So I'm not interested in reading book 2. So that might have also like played a little part into that. But this is a beautiful cover, and I'm always disappointed when books with beautiful covers don't perform as well as I feel like the cover shows. And the last book I read it all in one day yesterday. It's a children's classic, but it's Understood Betsy, and I have like this, I think this is some kind of library edition, vintage edition here. It's got little girls and little kitties on the back. I ended up using this one for Books and Lala's Buzzwordathon. March was character names, and we've got Betsy in the title. So Betsy starts out as Elizabeth Ann, and she is living with her aunt and great aunt, or great aunt and some great great aunt. And she's very coddled right from the beginning. She's like 6 months old when she comes and lives with them. Yeah, helicopter parenting majorly. And she's always heard about the Putney cousins who like make people do chores and stuff like that. And through a series of circumstances, she ends up having to go live with those cousins for a bit. And we see Elizabeth Ann turn into Betsy and blossom. And it's a very sweet, wholesome, like, this was written in 1917, I believe. Yeah, like around that time there was like a lot of good children's classics coming out. It's just a very sweet book. Lots of lessons learned and growth happening, and I really did enjoy it. So I think I give this one 5 stars, and I think this will be like a book that I use kind of in our homeschool in the future. For middle grade March, I haven't done well with middle grade March at all. I may use this for I'm pretty sure there was an animal on the cover, and I ended up using Song for a Whale for a book I missed out on. And there's animals, there's cats on the back, so I might just say it's for that. Because I don't think I have anything else checked off of the prompts that they gave. So that's it for my March. I don't know if April or May are going to be any better, but I'm kind of sick of the discombobulated reading months. I can understand it, but I just want to get back to like my normal reading. So let me know what you read in March, if there was anything like spectacular that you want to share with me. I would love to hear it.